All right, you're good to go.
All right, guys. Thank y'all so much for joining me this afternoon. I'm going to start by just introducing myself and kind of talking a little bit about what we're going to do today and what we're talking about. So my name's Caitlin Nichols. I'm the Senior Associate Director of Admissions here. Big, long, fancy title, but basically just means that I get to do things like this and talk with department chairs and talk with prospective students, specifically dual enrollment students and any students just interested in LSUA. So we have started these departmental meetings so that you as students can learn more about what each academic department can offer you. So today we are showcasing the Department of Biological Sciences. So we'll go ahead and get started and let y'all start by introducing yourselves. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and then also tell us why each of you chose biology and what courses you teach at LSUA.
I can start. My name is Dr. Sammons. I'm the botanist for the department. I'm also the department chair starting this fall. I got into biological sciences because I really enjoyed seeing the biological diversity of all the different organisms out there. Insect classes really struck my interest when I was an undergrad, but that was before I had a plant biology class. And once I had a botany class, man, I was hooked. I just loved how many different species there are. All of the evolutionary adaptations that come with those species. And that was really the draw. I did an undergraduate internship and did some undergraduate research while I was at Oklahoma City University. That's where I did my undergrad. And boy, those experiences were fantastic. And I've always been interested in biological sciences since. I did a PhD at Michigan State University. And then from there, I came to LSUA. You're going to hear from Dr. Stump, who actually is an insect biologist next. And I could see the big smile on his face when I talked about insects being my gateway, basically, to the biological sciences.
Okay, hi. So I'm from Austria originally, which you probably can hear from the accent. I've actually always been interested in zoology since I was 6 years old. Since I can think back, I was interested. And I bugged all my high school students with all kinds of different questions, all my colleagues there. I went to the University of Vienna and did undergrad and master's there and worked in biological control. That is, you use one species of insect to basically kill another one. I had the opportunity to go to the University of Tennessee at Knoxville and did a taxonomic project. That is, I organized a whole group of insects and described 11 new species and so on. I then did a postdoc, that is a researcher's position at North Carolina State University in Raleigh, working with insects again, various relationships between insects, host plants, viruses, and then a little bit in molecular biology. And then I needed a more permanent job. And after thinking back and forth, I decided on the position here because it gives you the opportunity to teach, which I really like doing. Often in big research universities, teaching is more seen like as a side job, kind of stops you from doing research. And here there's the opportunity to do teaching and research at the same time. So obviously you see me teaching the BAC courses, entomology and invertebrate zoology, but I'm also teaching the introductory biology series, just like Dr. Sammons. I teach number 1 and number 2, so you'll see me there most likely. And I also love teaching evolution.
Next up.
My name is Dr. Susan Bowers. I am from Georgia. Actually, am an animal physiologist here. I went to a small school, private school in Georgia called Berry College for my undergraduate degree. And then I went to Mississippi State for my master's and PhD. So why biology? Just like Dr. Stump, from an early age, I've always been interested in mainly animals, not so much insects. My dad is also a biologist, so that kind of really helped fuel the fire. I am more interested in exotic species and endangered species, and I actually started out as undergrad as a pre-vet. Once I got involved in research, I actually changed my route and started still working. I still work with endangered species, but just started doing more of the research route than actual medicine.
Wow, that was awesome. It's so great to hear. It's very cool because all of y'all are from different places and not from Louisiana, not local. So that's also just a great catch for students to see. So let's talk about some of the other faculty members y'all have in y'all's department and some other things that they specialize in. And then the programs that y'all offer. Y'all have tons of programs, and a lot of people don't understand the different concentrations y'all have within that department. So let's talk about the other faculty y'all have, and then all the programs y'all offer.
We have a really wide range of scientific interests in the department. We're very lucky for that. We have faculty interested in wildlife biology. That's Dr. Corbett and Dr. Marshall. Dr. Corbett is mainly vertebrates, and Dr. Marshall studies birds primarily, although she's also very, very well-rounded. We have another physiologist. You met Dr. Bowers just a moment ago. We have a second physiologist, Dr. Zaleki Nagatu. And we have a molecular biologist. Her name is Dr. Crosley. So we have 8 different concentrations basically to fit anyone's interest in biological sciences. We have wildlife, organismal. This is for students that are interested in graduate school, mainly wanting to specialize in a particular group of organisms like plants or like insects or like birds. We also have a molecular cellular route that they can take. We have a pre-professional route that students can take that they're interested in going to med school or vet school. We also have a secondary education route for students that are interested in teaching in public schools or private schools, and they want to teach primarily in the biological sciences. They can take that route as well. And then we have a general concentration where if a student doesn't really know that they want to specialize in one specific limited field, they can take classes with interests in all of the above that we've mentioned.
And that's also the great thing about LSUA is that y'all do get advised by your academic department. So depending on the student's concentration, are they advised by a faculty member that has interest in that area? Or how do y'all divide the advisement up?
Yep, that's exactly right. So once a student identifies what they want to do with their career, we team them up one-on-one with one of us, the faculty member that best meets their interest level, and then we can tailor their coursework for what their career objectives and their career goals are. And we hold their hand the entire way. We help them choose which classes they want. We help them write their admission letters for grad school or for med school or vet school. We help them write, we write for them actually letters of recommendation that feeds to one of the committees actually that I'd love to introduce to you today, our professional advisory committee. And actually we have the 2 faculty members that are joining us today that you met already, Dr. Stumpf and Dr. Bowers. They are both members of that committee. I think this is a great time to talk about what that committee does, because it's directly tied in to our objective of helping students succeed in not only their education at LSUA, but also in getting into the pre-professional schools.
No, that's great, because that leads into some other questions we get and lots of questions that the admissions office gets from students. How does our department of biological sciences prepare students for professional school? And what's that difference? You know, when I'm on the road recruiting, I sell that family film 101, but let's hear it from y'all's perspective.
Great, Christoph or Susan, either of you take that?
I think it really helps. We are very caring professors, really. You can believe me. You will be amazed how much time we spend with students, each one of us. I'm just coming from a phone call with a student advising for fall, and we spend quite a lot of time. You can expect us to put a lot of time in you and help you. On the other hand, the classes are actually quite rigorous. This is helpful to you. It will really help you prepare for grad school or for medical school or for whatever you want to do, because you actually get the chance to learn something. We do research projects. We have a grant, we're probably going to get to talk about this, where we emphasize research doing with students. It has been shown this is incredibly successful in preparing students and helping them. all our research students really get to professional schools or other schools, wherever they want to do really. It helps with problem solving abilities. It helps with writing skills. And you will generally see you have a one-to-one interaction with your teacher there. Give it to Susan.
Yeah, we actually have a lot of services to help our students here in the biology department. Anything from tutoring, we have SI sessions, but when it comes to the actual professional schools, Dr. Sammons was talking about the Pre-Med Advisory Committee, and that is mainly a committee of professors that are advising those pre-med students, and we're going to actually have them in our classes. So one, we can actually help prepare them for taking, if they're taking the GRE, maybe the MCAT. We're also there to actually help write those letters of recommendations for them to get into those professional schools. But we also make sure in our classes, pretty much the curriculum and the actual classes that we're teaching are going to go over those subjects that we actually we know that are the MCAT. We know it's on the GRE. A lot of times, yes, we have essay questions and short answer questions, but we're making sure that we also have the types of questions, mostly multiple choice questions, that you're going to see on those exams also.
Great information. And what are y'all's acceptance rate into professional schools of our graduates?
We've had a lot of success. Just this past year, I can think of many students. We have at least 2 going into medical school at Shreveport. We have numerous students entering the PA OT program, PT school in Shreveport. We actually have a student that just got into pharmacy school. So our success rates are very great for that. We have a lot of students, usually if they apply and they've kind of gone through our classes, they've gone through getting those letters of recommendations, we have a very, very good acceptance rate.
Yeah, that's very true. And I know you mentioned a little bit, Dr. Bowers, about some of the student services and support services y'all have just within y'all's department, like SIs. Can you talk a little bit about what an SI is, and then any of those support services y'all offer?
Sure, anyone else can, of course, jump in too. Our SI is a supplemental instructor. They're actually students that have been, were very successful in these classes. And these students, just as a side note, actually do get paid. So it's pluses in both directions, right? So we have students that are actually able to work on campus, actually gain something to actually put on their resume, their acceptance letter for teaching. But these students are also very successful in those classes. And so they can actually help the other students taking the class at that time. So we do know as professors, even though we try our best to help the students understand the material, sometimes another student explaining it to them is even more successful. So we want to give the students as many chances as possible to see the material in different ways. We also have tutoring. It's free tutoring here for all of our biology classes, and even the chemistry classes that some of our biology students will be taking. And those, once again, the tutors are actually students that were very successful in those classes, and again, are getting the opportunity to put teaching actually down on their resume to make them stand out for their, looking into getting to professional schools and graduate schools.
And I know one thing I always loved when I was taking my biology courses is how easy it was to find those tutoring schedules and SI schedules. They always have it posted in the biology department and available to their email as well. And the location they have on the second, floor. And one thing that I just really enjoyed too is just having that family feel. Y'all allow students to use y'all's break room and to share some of that, and have a computer lab so that all those biological science majors can still just stay in the same department. So that's really important.
Oh yes, the students have completely taken over the break room, and we're absolutely fine with that. The break room is a really great space for students to come together. There's a big chalkboard there. There's a big table for students to sit around and study. There's a couch, there's a coffee maker, there's a fridge, there's a sink, and there is even an outside balcony. So it's a nice space for students to get together. I always love seeing what they've come up with to write on the chalkboard after a long night of studying in that break room. Another service, I don't know if it's really considered a service, but I know that the faculty view it as one, and that's the Biological Sciences Organization. It's a biology club for our students. They get together. They have field trips, they do study sessions, they do community service work together. It's a excellent opportunity for them to build community with each other. It's a way for them to meet upper level. So if you're a freshman, sophomore, you can meet upper level students that have already been through the classes that you're in now, and they can give you some good solid advice on that. It's just a good organization as well. They do so much for the community. They do so much for LSUA. And again, it's another really strong resume builder for students.
If I may add to here, the SIs themselves are incredibly successful students. They're good teaching. Most of them will actually also do research projects. Basically, all of those students, Dr. Bowers was talking about, they're going to medical school or other places. They're very successful. They are very good in explaining material. They also learn a lot by doing the SI experience. And also, think about when we write a letter of recommendation for you, what do we want to put in there? We want to put character strength in there for you. We want to put in there what you have done. And the SIs, they help other students. They make sure other students can be successful. And as I said, many of them do research. There's a lot that you can put in a letter of recommendation for such a student, and they are always successful. And I would say our percentage is 80–90% for those who actually apply. And if you apply a second time, they almost always then get in. And doing SI, if you can, doing research will very much increase your chances of being extremely successful.
And I love that we can financially pay SIs, and we pay our tutors money. And I feel like that's one of the benefits of LSUA, because a lot of our students have families that they care for, that they support. They have children of their own, or they're out on their own, they're independent. A lot of our students are not traditional students coming straight from high school or still living with their parents, and a lot of them have jobs. So taking on some of these positions allows those students to still meet their financial responsibilities, but also be in university in classes. I know that Dr. Stump mentioned earlier a grant that we just received. And one of the components of that grant that we're so excited about is an opportunity to fund students to do research in summer. So the student will take a job performing actual research. They get to design their own research question. They'll work with one of us, an LSUA faculty member, to pursue that research, and then they'll get to publish that research. So talk about resume building. Having a published research under your belt when you're applying to graduate school or professional schools is fantastic. And we pay these students. They will receive a salary for the 3 months that they participate in the program.
That's amazing. Congrats so much on that recent grant as well. I know it is definitely doesn't go unnoticed for sure. And, you know, that's one thing, like you said, just the different support services. I definitely think the Biological Science Organization is a huge support, because you can support on each other, who support on other students, you know, and a lot of the non-traditional students and just students in general need that. I know that helps a lot. So, yes, I'm so glad you opened it up about research, because the fact that they have the opportunity to do that much undergraduate research at this level, I know each of y'all have went to other institutions, but is that normal? Is this a lot more research that they would get to do at this institution comparative to others?
Yeah, most research at most universities is performed by graduate students. Undergraduates may be hired in to wash glass, wash test tubes, wash glassware, clean out stalls, you know, do grunt work. But here at LSUA, students are actually responsible for their research. They come up with their research questions. They work with a faculty member to develop a methodology for answering those questions. And they get to answer their own questions. So it is somewhat rare for undergraduate research to take place at the level and frequency that we do here at LSUA, but it's something that we are very excited about. It's something that we like to brag about. And as we mentioned, the grant proposal, a major component of that proposal was to increase the opportunity for our students to do research. I think when we were introducing ourselves at the beginning of this interview, all three of us mentioned research as one of the reasons we got interested in biological sciences. And it's that way across the board. I cannot think of anyone I know that is a PhD or a scientist that was not interested at one point or another in research.
That's a great point. So what are some of the examples that of past research y'all have done? I know some of the new stuff y'all talked about, y'all may not have examples of yet, but what are some things that some of y'all students have completed before?
Well, I just finished up a big study at the Alexandria Zoo here in Alexandria, looking at some of the large cats and some hormone assays. I'm a reproductive physiologist by trade, so really looking into keeping these animals happy and healthy, but also for some of the special breeding programs, making sure that the animals are capable of some of the breeding program. So that was something we just finished. I have done some research and continuing research with some of the athletes actually on campus. I have a thermal imaging camera that the students are able to use that measures pretty much looking at heat. And so we know when it comes to injuries, we see a lot of heat inflammation with that. So that's something really good for our medical students or our students going into physical therapy and occupational therapy.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I have to add what Dr. Sammons first said. When you go to a conference and some undergrads, you ask them, did you do that poster? And it looks at you and says, no. You know, what did you do? Well, this little part. And that's just not going to happen with our students. They design the questions themselves and they perform the research, they write it themselves and do the poster. Of course, they get help by us, but they all do a fabulous job and they win awards. We're going to the Louisiana Academy of Sciences meeting and our students generally win awards there. They're really, really successful. So my research, we just finished a study on a cool little technique in molecular biology. And I have 5 students who became author on the first molecular biology publication at LSUA, completely performed by undergraduate students. I'm working currently with a species of crawfish or crayfish here in Louisiana. We are doing population genetics. I have a whole freezer full of that stuff. But in addition to that, students have always had the opportunity to design their own project. I have students come, I want to do this, and we do this. There's a student, she actually gets a degree from chemistry. She will be a high school teacher. But she performed a research project with me on bees, on invasive bees and wasps. There's many different possibilities. We actually now have a agreement with the USDA here in Pineville, where students will perform research on bark beetles, identify them. That's connected to my entomology course. And there's a bunch of other possibilities for students to do research. One of my students helped me work with scale insects, little insects that sap from plants. So that's my personal little things. I work with some colleagues in Mexico on some insects there. But yes, students have lots of possibilities to do research, and I'm actually planning on publishing all that research.
That's a lot of helpful information. Dr. Sammons, do you have some as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a plant biologist. So most of my research involves plants in some way or form. I consider myself a generalist. So students that are interested in any type of avenue about plants, I'm willing to take them on. I've recently completed a study of different mint species in Texas, a couple new species that have occurred there that have never been documented, and just finished documenting those. I've worked on floristic studies. So what features of flowers make them most attractive to the pollinators that visit them and the pollinators that take pollen from them and transport it to other individuals. I had a student that finished a project, and actually it's an ongoing project. She's finished 2 years of that project that looks at floristic and floral timing event changes through the year. So we've experienced a lot of warming in our planet over the last 50 years. So we've taken historical records of when species were collected in the Kisatchie when they were collected with their flowers open, and we're comparing the flower opening time to how they're timing those events today. So we're looking at a record of how those timing events have shifted through the last 50 years. Another thing I want to mention about undergraduate research is that we have funds for students to travel and present at conferences. Dr. Stump mentioned that our students often get awards at conferences. Again, the grant that we got has a section in it for funding student travel to present at national conferences. And there's funding there if a student comes up with a research idea that's going to be a little bit costly to fund the equipment or the methodology. We have funds that they can compete for and get the funds to fully pay for their projects. And then we'll pay for them to present their data at a conference.
That's amazing. And so a lot of times when I'm on the road recruiting with students, when I break it down this way, a lot of them don't understand this. And correct me if I'm wrong, and this is a conversation that will actually lead to the next question. When they have the chance to do this undergraduate research, they're actually in a course and receiving a credit for this class while completing that undergraduate research and their degree at the same time, correct?
That's correct, Caitlin. So we have many of the classes that we offer, classes that a student would enroll in with a bunch of other students. There are research projects built into those classes. They're usually smaller, but it does give a students the experience for designing a research question. It gives them the experience for using statistics to develop their data. But then there are also research-specific courses that they can enroll in where they work one-on-one with a faculty member to develop an even larger project, projects that can last the whole duration of a semester or even the whole duration of a year or two.
That's incredible. So the next question was, what are some of the type of classes that students can expect to take if they major in biology? Obviously, those are some of your upper level courses, but just beginning, what are just some of the courses a student would take if they're majoring in biology?
The courses I teach, of course, I do come into some of our, especially for our PT students, physical therapy students, I will teach the human anatomy and physiology courses. Those are also some of our pre-nursing students will be taking those classes. My upper level classes, though, are anything to do with physiology. So, of course, I have an animal physiology class. The students will actually do research in lab. We actually do research where we actually are able to hatch out chickens. And so we actually will have chicks that the students get to actually, pretty much watch hatch. And then also, the chicks do get to go to homes afterwards. We don't keep them here at the department. I also teach a comparative vertebrate anatomy class that you're going to see a lot of our students going to med school and vet school take. Very heavy dissection class, learning a lot about pretty much the anatomy of those animals.
I think a key to note here is that a lot of the coursework is going to depend on the interests of the student. So their first year, even their first 2 years, all students are going to take very similar courses. We call them general courses. So they're going to learn the general biology of cells. They'll learn the taxonomy. They'll learn ecology. They'll learn all the generals that every biologist on the planet should know and should be very comfortable with those topics. But then their advisor begins to start tailoring their schedules with more in-depth classes on what they are interested in. So if they want to be an animal physiologist, Dr. Bowers will make sure that they're in all of those animal phys classes and all the supporting classes that they will need to have that career. If they want to be a botanist, then I'll make sure that they are in a lot of botany heavy classes. Most of my botany students will end up taking Dr. Stump's courses as well, because I think insects are just as important to plant biology as they are to insect biology. So the students, depending on what their interests are, they'll determine what their schedules are tailored to.
That's a great point.
And then all students end up taking their senior year, they'll all end up taking classes together again, regardless of what their interests are. Those classes are senior seminar. Yeah. So senior seminar is kind of the final class that we offer. We require the students to do a large group project, research project in that class, just so we can one last time make sure that they understand good presentation skills and they can synthesize all that they've learned in the 4 years at LSUA. It's kind of a closing capstone course that we And students find that they really enjoy it. And then they present their research to the department and to the public, anyone that wants to come see their research as well.
Yeah, I think students, of course, they start out with, introductory biology. They will possibly see me in both courses there. They take microbiology, they take cell, they take genetics, lots of the different chemistries, of course. We have a lot of different upper level courses. Dr. Negato teaches endocrinology and histology. Dr. Bowers teaches her courses, animal physiology, comparative. There's a variety of different to the needs of the students, what they want to do. One of our big courses is also ecology. And as I said before, the courses that I teach in the upper level, entomology, so insects, students go out and collect insects and identify and go through the whole biology. And then a large course is invertebrate zoology, pretty much everything that's not a vertebrate. So there's also a lot of dissecting, although a different type of dissecting than Dr. Bauer's courses. But you get, crayfish and you get squid and whatnot. And normally there's also a trip involved. So we do a lot of field trips. We do a trip to LUMCON, the Louisiana University's Marine Consortium. The field site, the DeFelice field site, is in Cocodrie, Louisiana. That's down west of Homer. This little spur, land spur going west in the middle of the Gulf. And that's just an amazing resource. And people, the students go out with boats and whatnot. In entomology, we also take countless field trips, including museum in Baton Rouge and whatnot. And the other upper level course, besides occasionally ecology, which I also love teaching, is evolution. And here, students can learn a lot about different rules and principles, Hardy-Weinberg principles. There's some mathematics involved. And I actually got my degree officially from a Department of Ecology and Evolutionary Biology, so I really like teaching that particular course. I see it really also as one of the capstones understanding biology.
That was very helpful. And I know something else that we just really pride ourselves on, and this is something we use in recruitment, is talking about that class size. So I know in a lot of those intro level classes, those are your bigger class sizes, but as the students move up and complete their degree, let's talk about that different class size. So those intro classes, obviously this semester is a little one-off, don't get me wrong, but on average, let's just say on a normal fall semester, how many students would y'all expect to see in your intro classes, intro to biology courses?
Intro classes usually have between 40 and 60 students. We try to cap it around 60 so it doesn't get large. We will, instead of having one large class with hundreds of students, we will subdivide those classes down and have multiple professors teach multiple sections just so we can keep those class sizes down. But even in those the largest of those classes, 60 students, for example, that's not what they experience, because we break them down even further into groups of 20, 24 to do labs. So the students will always get to know their professors starting from that very, very first semester. I know I came from Michigan State before here, as I mentioned in the beginning, and I had only taught classes of 600, 500, 600 students at a time. So, and I didn't enjoy it because I didn't get to know any of those students. It was really more about managing email than it was about teaching and working one-on-one with students. So LSUA, when I saw the advertisement and the class student to professor ratio, man, that's where I wanted to be. And I've loved it here because of that. So in upper level classes, you'll have anywhere between 7 and 15, max 20 students in the upper level class, just so we can keep that real tight knit, one-on-one, lots of access to your instructors, to your professors. It also gives us the opportunity to take lots of field trips, like Dr. Stump was just mentioning. We do a lot of field trips. Experiential learning in the field, learning hands-on is a very important quality to education for us here at LSUA. And many classes will have field trip components to them. Dr. Stump mentioned and listed several of them. Then we also have a class that we just started offering biomes at break. So during spring break, during summer break, we take a group of students and travel all around the United States looking at the different biomes that are present there. We offered the class the first time this last semester. Didn't go so well because of the coronavirus, but we are very hopeful that next year we'll have that under control and we'll be able to do large group get-togethers again and do trips like Biomes at Break. But we have a number of great trips that students can go on. LumCon is synonymous with a great learning experience. Students always come back from that trip with Dr. Stump, having gained so much knowledge and so much experience from that. And I still hear stories even from the very first iteration of that class. So great times.
I do too, actually. I've heard many stories. But yes, so that is actually great points. And that's actually what LSUA prides itself on, is that one-on-one experience. You get to know your professors, you get to know your classmates, you get to know your peers all the way toward graduation. That way y'all do have that opportunity to write those letters of recommendation or anything. And it is like they are a part of y'all graduating, and y'all played a huge role in that. So talking about y'all's graduates, what are some of y'all's graduates doing? I know we mentioned some that are in professional school, but what are some of their occupations currently?
We have one, an actual veterinarian right now. She's actually in Arizona. So she, you know, we actually have students out there actually practicing veterinary medicine. I know I've only been here for 6 years. And so they're just starting now to, you know, some of the ones that I first taught starting to graduate and actually get out there and actually get jobs. I know we have a PA that's graduated in the last 2 years. Is actually working still in Louisiana, has stayed in Louisiana doing that work.
Yeah, we have a PA up in Shreveport. We have an MD down in New Orleans. We have lots of students that are still in graduate school. We have a wildlife student that graduated actually before my time here that I understand is working as a professor himself now. We have students all over the country. We actually have students, we have a student in Venezuela working now as well. So even outside the country.
Basically just proves those possibilities are endless. Dr. Stump?
Yeah, well, like last year or 2 years ago, I went to the vet with my cat, and whom do I see? A former student is my vet there. So apparently we were somewhat successful. My research students, I mean, Dr. Sammons was mentioning the two who went to Shreveport, one into medical school, the other one in biochemistry. I had another student who was, or still is actually in the military, and he's also going to medical school. So students are actually very successful when they leave here, or some going to field biology, you know, some work federal government. It really depends.
And I know I didn't ask y'all this when we first got started, and Dr. Bowers already mentioned her times here at LSUA, but Dr. Sammons, how long have you been at LSUA?
I'll be starting my 7th year this year.
Okay. What about you, Dr. Stump?
07, quite a long time.
Much longer than 7.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have one last question, and this will be just a fun question for y'all. And before we get to that, I just want to ask if there's anything else that y'all want to mention or want students to know about the biological science department that prospective student or any student interested would want to hear.
I did want to bring up one other thing. I know we've been talking about academics and getting into professional school, but I want to make sure students know that we like to have fun too. We usually do have numerous social events throughout the semester for our students. We usually have the welcome back. Dr. Sammons usually ends up kind of we have an escape room for Halloween. Dr. Stumpf has done a quiz bowl for us. So I do want the students to know too that it's not all work and no play. We do have a lot of fun here. We like to have fun. We like to get to know our students and actually have a lot of social events, a lot of eating going along with these social events too, just to make the students feel more at home with us also, not just other students, to realize we're all also people. It's not just, you know, studying. We want the students to get to know us, get to know what we actually went through during undergrad and graduate school. I think that's a really important thing, again, with the class size and also just the students in general, get to know us, get to know what we actually went through when we were in school, and you get a lot of good advice that way. and kind of a better outlook on maybe what they actually want to do when they get out of school also.
That's a great point, because I think what we see a lot when we're talking with students is they have an interest in something, but they have no idea what the occupation is they could actually do with it. You know, they have an interest in animals or botany, like you said, but they're not sure exactly what does that play out. What does that mean for me? I know that's a big thing. So that's a great point. I know when I was a student here, we had a bonfire. There was lots of food, but there was a big bonfire and hanging out times, and just a chance for us to all meet students from different courses. And like Dr. Sammons said, it's higher up students with a different classification. So that's very, very important. But yeah, so the last question really for all of y'all is, what is y'all's favorite part about LSUA? I know Dr. Bowers, you mentioned a lot of fun. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, I do think it's a lot of fun. One of the things that actually drew me to LSUA, it does remind me a lot of the undergraduate school that I went to. It was a small school. We got to know our professors. Like I said, that's where I actually got to do some research that actually led me to my decision of pretty much where I am today. And I love that feeling of LSUA, that I get to work with the student one-on-one with research. I get to work with them even in my classes one-on-one, doing research, and actually being able to kind of, take that research and what they're interested in. It doesn't have to be just my research. What I'm funded for is really, what do they want to do? What do they want to explore? And how can we get it done? And that's really what made me want to come to LSU. I think the department is great. And I felt that from everyone in the department. The student comes first, and we have a lot of fun doing that, a lot of fun doing research and helping our students, strive for the best they can be and actually to get into the programs that they want.
Yeah, when I came first to LSUA, what I saw was, wow, that was a big labs that we're having there for the students. And you can set up the way you want it. I have my own little collection of insects that I can rear there. I have my little station to do molecular biology. The courses can happen there. So basically, it's your own little area that the students can participate in, and they can do research there, they take the courses there. And I think it's very intimate in that sense. And I think the students enjoy that. They know where to find me. They just go straight to the lab and they want to see me. And it helps them. I really like we're now having courses in the lab too. It's really interaction. It's not just doing research and nothing else, and the student is just kind of more a problem than anything else. That sometimes happens in bigger schools. It's not the case here. You can do all. We have about 60% teaching, and I really enjoy that. At the same time, you have the opportunity to interact with students and to help them.
Boy, for me, Dr. Bowers and Dr. Stump really hit the nail on the head. It's the opportunities that we have at LSUA to work with students that really make it so rewarding. For me, we have the opportunity to work one-on-one in small groups. And I just love the students that LSUA brings here. I think that we have the best students in the entire state. I mean, they are non-traditional. They are often traditional as well, but they have such a good, positive attitude coming in to college, maybe because they took a few years off before they came in, but they have a different attitude. They have a different attitude than what I experienced at a larger university like Michigan State. They're more serious. And then when it's time to have fun, they really know how to have fun, and they are creative and they're innovative. And I just love the students here. I don't know how LSUA recruits those students, but they do, and they do a great job. And year after year, I'm just so happy with the students they send us in that freshman year, that first year. And of course, I love watching them grow through the 4 years here. And then I love hearing about their successes when they leave.
And that's the difference that we tell students that they can receive here. Being an LSUA alumni, that's very close to my heart. But one big thing too that we talk to students about is being able to build those relationships, those one-on-ones experience, all of that in general, but then how much your professors are going to work with you, specifically in a time like today with all the uncertainty with COVID and everything, I have not ever seen an institution pull together more, come up with a game plan, and be willing to work with their students in an unprecedented time. Specifically y'all's department, knowing that how difficult it'll be with labs and just everything in general, and just the willingness to go above and beyond. And that's definitely makes me want to do the same, you know, so for every student. So we really appreciate it. And so when students, you know, would love, they're very interested and they watch this video, please tell them how they could contact y'all. Where could they go?
They are free to email me anytime. My email address is nsammons, N-S-A-M-M-O-N-S at lsua.edu, or they can navigate to the biology page on the LSUA website, and they can contact any of us from there. Dr. Stump's email is listed there, Dr. Bowers. And then it also discusses some of our other faculty and provides their email address as well. Students can contact any of us anytime. If they're interested in birds, please contact Dr. Marshall. If they're interested in wildlife biology, contact Dr. Corbett. I know that any of us, even though it's the summer, would love to spend time chatting about biology with prospective students. So please give us a shout out. We'd be happy to speak with you.
And that's a big point too. So if any students or anyone that does watch this video, if y'all want to set up a campus visit or campus tour, y'all can see all of campus as well as the biological sciences department individually. So they'd love to meet with you, and believe me, we're not just saying that. We are humans and want to meet with you and chat with you. So
Absolutely.
well, thank y'all so much for coming. We really appreciate that. And y'all did such a great job. We'll talk soon.
Thanks, Kim.
Bye.
Bye, y'all.